challenge was to preserve cultural memory. During the investigate phase, I asked myself a number of questions, three of which were: what major challenges do the elderly face? They do not know about age related diseases like diabetes, arthritis, or hypertension, and yet some of them may suffer from some diseases and not know it, or may not be taking their medication seriously. How will you sensitize the elderly about age related diseases? By organizing a medical camp in which the elderly will be sensitized about these diseases and offered free treatment in case of illness. How will hosting a medical camp promote preservation of cultural memory? I have planned to have a group of young people interview the elderly, and the data collected will be shared with the library. If they agree to partner with me, a book will be published about the ideas of these wise aged people. In that way, cultural memory is being preserved because even several years later, young people can still access the information. All the questions I asked myself, the research, and the consultations I had with health personnel and my community leaders led me to this one solution: to organize a medical camp. The medical camp was held on the 25th of March, and we were able to gather 35 elderly people who were examined, diagnosed, treated, and served a meal and given a package of salt, sugar, rice, and soap. I was able to put together a team of 8 young people who interviewed the elderly. People got to share in some of the joys and the fears that these elderly people had over the years. Some of the stories shared by the elderly people were: Theopista, a woman who lives in a one-roomed house, which also doubles as a kitchen and a bathroom, says she got married to a man who placed excessive demands on her, coupled with long hours in the garden. This eventually caused her knee joints to get dislocated. As a result, she became immobile and eventually put on excessive weight, and her legs cannot carry her anymore. We had planned to take her to the medical camp by ambulance, but unfortunately it broke down on the day of the event. But a medical personnel from our team reached out to her at her home, and her blood pressure was found to have spiked, and so she was treated. She, however, also suffers from diabetes. But one other interesting thing she told us is that her mother taught her how to preserve a fire on a charcoal stove in order to save fuel and heat, since one does not have to relight it as often as they cook. The fire never goes out, ever, and that's how effective the method is. Due to the fact that I returned to school, I was able to attend the camp virtually, but I got a chance to personally interview an old lady in the vicinity of my school. She is called Gladys, and she is 95 years old. She started a school in her neighborhood in 1977 and has been teaching children nursery to 3rd grade up to now. She intends to keep on teaching until her very last breath. However, she suffers from heart problems, ulcers, pain in her hands and legs, pain in her left ear, and impaired vision. At the medical camp was an elderly man called Abdul. He told a tale of an invasion at the king's palace when he was a boy. The king, Sir Edward Mutesa, who was also Uganda's first president, was attacked at his palace and his government overthrown by the then Prime Minister Dr. Apollo Milton Obote in 1966, who then became the president. As fate would have it, he too was overthrown by Idi Amin, who was the army chief at the time. We also visited a World Heritage Site, the Kasubi tombs found in our community, and this is where former kings are buried. 95-year-old Alexandria came to live in the place when she was 10 years old as an aide to her sister, who was the king's wife. She showed us around the burial site of the king's wives. My solution was very effective. All the elderly people who received free medical treatment expressed deep gratitude, and the area leaders sent a vote of thanks in writing to the church where the medical camp was held, stating that some of the elderly that were in attendance were actually healed or were already feeling better. For an event that impacted 35 elderly people by giving them free consultation and medication, a take-home package, and a meal, we spent $550. And this encouraged me to organize many more camps in the future.